The observation deck of Nexus Station offered a breathtaking view of the binary stars that illuminated this neutral corner of space. But Jenna Thorne couldn't appreciate the cosmic beauty. Her stomach churned as she adjusted her formal diplomatic robes, the weight of 3 years' worth of failed negotiations pressing down on her shoulders like a physical burden. At 28, she was the youngest senior diplomat in the Terran Federation's history, a fact that had earned her both respect and resentment among her peers. Her auburn hair was pulled back in the severe style required for formal proceedings, though rebellious strands had already begun to escape, framing her tired green eyes. The war between humanity and the Meridian Empire had cost millions of lives, and everyone looked to her as their last hope for peace. The chime of the station's communication system interrupted her brooding. "Ambassador Thorne, please report to Conference Chamber Alpha. The Meridian delegation has arrived." Jenna took a deep breath, straightening her shoulders as she made her way through the sterile corridors of the station. The Neutral Zone facility was a marvel of cooperative engineering, built by 7 different species as a place where conflicts could be resolved without bloodshed. Today, she prayed it would live up to its purpose. The conference chamber's doors slid open with a whisper, revealing an interior that seemed to exist in perpetual twilight. The Meridians preferred dimmer lighting than humans, and the compromise illumination cast everything in soft shadows. At the far end of the oval table sat Ambassador Nexus, her crystalline form refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. The Meridians were silicon-based beings, their bodies resembling living gemstones that could shift from transparency to opacity at will. "Ambassador Thorne," Nexus spoke, her voice carrying the harmonic resonance typical of her people. "We appreciate your continued dedication to these proceedings." "The pleasure is mine, Ambassador," Jenna replied, taking her seat across from the alien delegation. "I hope today brings us closer to a lasting peace. Indeed, the Empire has considered your latest proposals carefully." Nexus paused, her crystalline features shifting to what Jenna had learned indicated contemplation. "However, the Council feels that words alone are insufficient to bridge the gulf between our peoples." Jenna's heart sank. After months of careful negotiation, they were back to square one. What additional assurances does the Empire require? Not assurances, Ambassador, a gesture, a demonstration of trust that transcends political rhetoric. The chamber's secondary doors opened, and Jenna's breath caught in her throat. 2 Meridian guards flanked a figure that made her question everything she thought she knew about the crystalline species. Unlike the others, this being appeared almost organic, with skin that seemed to shift between transparency and a deep sapphire blue. His form was undeniably masculine and humanoid. Standing nearly as tall as Jenna's own 5'8" frame, his features were sharp and angular, as if carved from the finest crystal, but there was something undeniably alive about him. Long hair the color of starlight fell to his shoulders, and when he raised his eyes to meet hers, she saw irises that swirled with galaxies of silver and blue. Those eyes held an emotion she recognized all too well, barely contained terror. "Ambassador Thorne," Nexus announced, "may I present Prince Zephyr of House Meridian, 3rd son of the Crystal Throne." Jenna rose instinctively, her diplomatic training warring with her personal horror. "Your Highness, this is unexpected," the prince said. Nothing, his gaze fixed on the floor, but she could see the minute trembling in his crystalline form. Up close, she realized he wasn't entirely transparent like the others. His body had substance, weight, a presence that spoke of flesh and blood despite its alien nature. "Prince Zephyr is our offering to you, Ambassador," Nexus continued as if discussing trade goods, a symbol of the Empire's commitment to peace. "He will accompany you to whatever destination you choose, serving as a permanent liaison between our peoples." The words hit Jenna like a physical blow. They weren't offering a diplomatic escort or cultural exchange. They were giving her a person, a clearly unwilling person, as if he were property to be traded. I don't understand," Jenna stammered, her usual diplomatic composure cracking. "Surely the prince has duties to his own people." "His duty now is to serve the peace between our species," Nexus replied smoothly. "The transport vessel is prepared to transfer you both to your chosen destination." We trust this gesture will demonstrate the Empire's sincerity. Jenna looked at Prince Zephyr, again noting how his hands clenched at his sides, how his breathing seemed carefully controlled. When he finally lifted his eyes to meet hers, she saw not just fear but resignation, the look of someone who had accepted a fate. They couldn't change. This is not acceptable, Jenna said firmly, her voice carrying the authority that had made her a successful negotiator. I cannot accept a person as if they were a diplomatic gift. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Nexus's crystalline form shifted to a darker hue, indicating displeasure. You reject the Empire's gesture of goodwill. The implication was clear. Refuse their gift, and the peace talks would end. Millions more would die in the resumed conflict. Jenna felt the weight of countless lives balanced against the freedom of one person, and the burden was crushing. She looked at Zephyr again, seeing the slight shake of his head. He was telling her to accept, to save the peace even at the cost of his autonomy. I accept the Empire's generous offer, but I want it understood that Prince Zephyr will be treated as an honored guest, not as property. Of course, Nexus agreed, though her tone suggested the distinction was meaningless to her. The shuttle awaits. As they were escorted from the chamber, Jenna found herself walking beside the prince, up close. She could smell something like ozone and starlight emanating from his crystalline skin. When their eyes met briefly, she whispered the only thing she could think of, "I'm sorry." His response was barely audible, spoken in accented but clear standard, "So am I." The shuttle ride to the transport ship was conducted in oppressive silence, with Zephyr pressed against the far wall as if trying to disappear entirely. Jenna wanted to say something, anything, to break the tension, but every word that came to mind seemed inadequate. As their transport ship engaged its hyperdrive, carrying them away from the neutral zone toward an uncertain future, Jenna realized that her life had just changed irrevocably. She was now responsible for someone who had been given to her against his will, and she had no idea how to navigate the moral complexity of their situation. The stars streaked past the viewports as they jumped to hyperspace, each point of light representing the vast distance they were putting between themselves and everything they had known. In the reflection of the transperistel, Jenna could see Zephyr's profile. Still rigid with fear and resignation, whatever happened next, she vowed silently, she would find a way to give him back his freedom, even if it meant defying both their governments and risking everything she had worked for. The future stretched before them, uncertain and fraught with danger, but also filled with the possibility of something neither of them had expected when they'd boarded that shuttle. Hope. The transport ship Meridian Dawn was luxurious by military standards, but it felt like a prison to both its passengers. Jenna had chosen to dock at Haven Station, a remote research outpost on the edge of Terran space, hoping the isolation would give them time to figure out their impossible situation without government interference. Their assigned quarters consisted of 2 rooms connected by a common area, but Zephyr had immediately claimed the far corner of the main space, settling onto the floor with his back pressed against the wall. For 18 hours, he hadn't moved except to use the facilities, and he refused all offers of food or drink. Jenna watched him from across the room, noting how his crystalline skin had dulled from its initial sapphire brilliance to an almost gray translucency. She'd tried everything she could think of, offering different types of food, adjusting the lighting and temperature, even playing soft music from Earth's archives. Nothing seemed to reach him. On the second night, she was awakened by the sound of whispered words in what she recognized as the Meridian language. Following the sound, she found Zephyr still huddled in his corner, speaking to himself in rapid, desperate tones. His voice carried the same harmonic quality as Ambassador Nexus, but where hers had been commanding, his was musical, almost ethereal. Jenna's hand trembled as she activated her universal translator, dreading what she might hear. The mechanical voice that filled the quiet room made her blood run cold. The human waits for the optimal moment to begin the consumption. Perhaps their rituals require specific planetary alignments, or they prefer their prey weakened by starvation. Mother of stars, grant me the courage to die with honor when the feeding begins. Let my essence return to the crystal throne intact. Consumption. Feeding. The words hit Jenna like physical blows. They thought humans were cannibals who ate their mates. The revelation explained everything: his terror, his refusal to eat, the resignation in his eyes. He wasn't just afraid of being held captive. He believed she was planning to devour him. Jenna spent the rest of the night pacing their quarters, her mind reeling. How could she possibly convince someone that she wasn't planning to eat him? How did one prove they weren't a monster when the other party had been raised to believe such horrors were natural? When morning came, she approached the situation like the diplomatic crisis it was. First objective: establish trust through consistent, non-threatening behavior. Instead of simply offering Zephyr food as she had before, she began preparing meals for herself in full view, taking obvious bites of everything before placing portions. Near his corner, she made sure he could see that she was consuming normal food, not whatever his people thought humans preferred. Zephyr watched her with those swirling galaxy eyes, confusion flickering across his angular features. When she bit into an apple and made appreciative sounds, his head tilted slightly. A gesture she was learning indicated curiosity. "This is what humans eat," she said aloud, speaking slowly and clearly for the translator. "Fruits, vegetables, grains. We don't consume other sentient beings." On the third day, he finally reached for a piece of the crystalline fruit she'd obtained from the station's Meridian traders, but only after watching her eat half of it first. "Good," she murmured in Standard, then switched to the few Meridian words her translator had helped her practice. "Zephyr, safe; Jenna, friend." He startled at hearing his name in her rough pronunciation, his skin flickering from gray to a pale blue. It was the first time she'd seen any color in his crystalline form since their rival. Music became her second strategy. She discovered he responded to softer melodies, classical pieces from Earth that seemed to ease the constant tension in his shoulders. Sometimes she caught him humming along, his voice creating harmonies that made her chest tighten with unexpected emotion. The sound was hauntingly beautiful, like crystal chimes in a gentle wind. The breakthrough came during the second week, when Zephyr fell ill. His skin had taken on an alarming grayish pallor, and he'd been trembling despite the warm quarters. Jenna found him collapsed near the refresher, barely conscious. Panic flooded through her. She'd been so focused on not frightening him that she hadn't considered he might have different physiological needs. Moving carefully, she lifted his surprisingly solid form. He was heavier than his crystalline appearance suggested, and carried him to the sleeping area, wrapping him in every thermal blanket she could find. When he regained consciousness hours later, he found her sitting nearby with a bowl of warm nutrient broth, her face creased with genuine worry. "Zephyr," she said softly, offering the bowl, "you need sustenance, please." For the first time since their rival, he looked directly into her eyes. Whatever he saw there seemed to surprise him. His skin flickered with hints of blue, like light returning to crystal. Slowly, trembling, he reached for the bowl, but instead of drinking, he stared at the liquid suspiciously. Understanding flooded through Jenna. Without breaking eye contact, she took the bowl back and drank several spoonfuls herself, then returned it to him. This time, he drank. "Why?" he whispered, the first word he'd spoken in her presence. His standard was heavily accented but clear. "Why do you care if I live? Do you not plan to?" He gestured vaguely, his meaning clear. Jenna felt her heart break a little. "Because I don't plan to hurt you ever. I know what your people believe about humans, but it's not true. We don't consume our mates. We protect them." He studied her face for a long moment, those otherworldly eyes searching for deception. "Your translator revealed my words, yes, and you're not angry that I called you a predator?" "I'm angry at whoever taught you to fear us like that," Jenna said firmly. "But not at you. Never at you." Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the wall of terror he'd built around himself. He finished the broth in silence, but when he set the bowl aside, he didn't immediately retreat to his corner. "In my culture," he said carefully, his voice carrying that musical quality that made her think of wind chimes. "Males are consumed by females during mating. It is natural, expected. I was told humans were the same, only more savage because you lacked the ritual purification." Jenna's stomach turned. "That's not how humans express love. When we care for someone, we want to cherish them, protect them, Make them happy, love. The word seemed foreign on his lips. His translator struggling with the concept, the emotion between mates who choose each other. Her eyes widened. Choose. Females don't choose their mates in your culture. Choice? He tilted his head again. I do not understand this word in the context of mating. On Earth, yes, usually both people choose each other freely. Love requires consent from both parties. Consent. He repeated the word like it was precious, his skin brightening to a clear blue. We have no such concept in our language. For the first time since her arrival at the station, Zephyr smiled, a small, tentative expression that transformed his entire face, making his crystalline features seem warm and alive. Tell me more about this, love, he said, settling closer to her, not close enough to touch, but no longer pressed against the wall like a cornered animal. Their conversation started slowly, tentatively, like two diplomats negotiating a fragile ceasefire. Jenna would sit across the room from Zephyr, respecting the space he needed while sharing stories of Earth, of human customs, of the concept of romantic love that seemed to fascinate and perplex him in equal measure. On your world, he asked one evening, his standard improving daily, males court females? They bring gifts and speak poetry, Jenna chuckled, the sound causing his skin to shimmer with golden flecks. Some do, others prefer more practical approaches. But yes, courtship is common. We try to win someone's affection through kindness, compatibility, shared interests. His head tilted in that endearing gesture she'd come to recognize. And the female may refuse. Of course, love requires choice. From both parties, he repeated wonderingly. In my world, males are selected by the Crystal Council based on genetic compatibility and political advantage. There's no courtship. As days passed, Zephyr began sharing his own culture. He told her of the crystalline cities beneath Aurora painted, skies of art forms that used light itself as a medium, of his education in statecraft and philosophy that had been cut short when he was selected as a peace offering. I was trained to serve the Empire's interests, he explained, sitting closer now, only an arm's length away instead of across the room. His skin had brightened to a beautiful sapphire blue, with veins of silver running through it like captured starlight. But I never expected to serve them as this. You're not serving anyone, Jenna said firmly. You're a person, not property. On Earth, that distinction matters. The moment that changed everything came when Zephyr cut his hand on a broken piece of equipment. Jenna heard his sharp intake of breath and turned to find him staring at the crystalline blue blood welling from his palm. It looked like liquid sapphire shot through with silver threads. Let me help, she said, reaching for the medical kit. He tensed but didn't pull away as she approached. Your people, do they smell blood and lose control? No, Zephyr. We help heal injuries, not cause more. She knelt beside him, her movements slow and deliberate, when she gently took his injured hand in hers. He trembled, but not from fear this time. His skin cowered in corners. Now he moved through their quarters with growing confidence, his crystalline skin maintaining a steady sapphire glow that Jenna had learned indicated contentment. He laughed more often, a sound like crystal bells that never failed to make her heart skip, and had taken to sitting beside her during meals, sometimes letting their hands brush when passing food. The fear in his galaxy swirl eyes had been replaced by curiosity, trust, and something warmer that made Jenna's pulse race whenever she caught him watching her. But with growing intimacy came growing complications. The music of your world is fascinating, Zephyr said one afternoon as they listened to a Beethoven symphony. He was attempting to learn human dancing, his movements graceful but uncertain as he tried to match the rhythm. It speaks of emotions we have no words for in Meridian. Jenna stood to guide him, placing her hands on his shoulders. The contact sent warmth shooting through her. His crystalline skin conducted heat in ways that made every touch electric. This piece is about hope triumphing over despair. Hope, he repeated, allowing her to guide his movements. Yes, I think I understand this concept now. Their dance was interrupted by the sudden flicker of a holographic transmission, materializing in their common area. Both of them quickly stepped apart as the image of Admiral Torres stabilized, her steel-gray eyes taking in the scene with obvious disapproval. Ambassador Thorne, the Admiral's voice was crisp, professional. I trust the Meridian Prince is adapting well to his situation. Jenna's jaw tightened. Prince Zephyr is not a situation, Admiral. He's a person who was given no choice in coming here. Nevertheless, the diplomatic implications are significant. Command needs assurance that he's being properly managed. The word made Jenna's stomach turn. He's not livestock, ma'am. Of course not, Torres replied, though her tone suggested otherwise. But he is an alien dignitary whose well-being affects our peace treaty. We can't have complications. Jenna felt Zephyr's tension through their growing bond. Something she'd noticed developing between them, a subtle awareness of his emotional state. There are no complications, Admiral. See that it stays that way. The Meridian Empire has been making inquiries about his status. They seem concerned about prolonged exposure to human culture. After the transmission ended, Zephyr emerged from the bedroom where he'd retreated during the call. His skin had dulled to a worried gray-blue. They see me as a problem to be managed, he said quietly. They're idiots, Jenna said fiercely, pulling him into her arms. The gesture had become natural over the past weeks, and she marveled at how perfectly he fit against her. You're not anyone's problem. He melted against her, his skin warming back to sapphire. What happens when they decide I'm too much trouble? I won't let anything happen to you. Can you promise that? His eyes searched her face. Can you really promise me safety in a universe that sees me as a diplomatic tool instead of a person? Instead of answering with words, Jenna cupped his face in her hands and kissed him. It was their first kiss, soft, tentative, asking rather than demanding. When he kissed her back with the wonder of someone discovering sunlight after a lifetime in darkness, she felt something shift in her chest, as if her heart was expanding to make room for another soul. I want to be with you, she whispered against his lips when they broke apart. Really be with you. But I'm scared. Of me? Of wanting you too much? Of forgetting that this might not last? Zephyr traced her face with gentle fingers, his touch leaving trails of warmth. Then let's not think about tomorrow. Let's just have right now. Her answer was to pull his head down for another kiss, this one hungry and desperate. When she began tugging at his shirt, he'd taken to wearing human clothing, which looked oddly endearing on his crystalline form. His resolve to take things slowly crumbled. Are you certain? He asked as she led him toward the bedroom, his accent thickening with emotion. I've never been more certain of anything. Their lovemaking was tender and exploratory, both of them learning the geography of alien desire. Zephyr's skin glowed brighter when aroused, pulsing with inner light that turned their bedroom into a starfield. He made soft, musical sounds that drove Jenna wild with want, while she worshipped his body with reverent touches, showing him what it meant to be cherished rather than consumed. Afterward, as they lay entwined in the dim light, Zephyr traced patterns on her skin with fingertips that left faint, luminescent trails. Is this what human bonding feels like when it's right? He asked, his voice soft with wonder. Yes, I think I love you, he admitted, the words barely audible. Jenna's heart nearly stopped. You think, I know I love you, yes, but love is new to me. I don't know all its shapes yet. I love you too, Zephyr, completely. But their happiness was short-lived. The next day brought another holographic visitor, this time from the Meridian Empire. The crystalline form of Ambassador Nexus materialized in their quarters, her presence filling the space with harmonic resonance. Prince Zephyr. Nexus's mechanical translator crackled. There have been concerns about your extended stay with the human. Zephyr straightened, royal dignity settling over him like armor despite his human clothes. What concerns? That you may be forgetting your duties to your people. The Empire requires your return for reassignment. Reassignment to what? A more appropriate mate, one of your own species who understands proper Meridian protocols. Jenna felt rage burning in her chest, but Zephyr placed a calming hand on her arm. I respectfully decline. This is not a request, Prince. Then it's a command I'm choosing to disobey. The silence stretched taut before Nexus spoke again, her crystalline form shifting to darker hues. You would choose exile for a human, Zephyr looked at Jenna, his eyes shining with unshed tears and fierce determination. I would choose love over duty. I would choose freedom over fear. Very well. You have 72 hours to reconsider. After that, the Empire will take more direct action. When the transmission ended, Zephyr collapsed into Jenna's arms, finally allowing the tears to fall. His crystalline tears looked like liquid diamonds, each drop carrying the light of distant stars. "They'll come for me," he whispered. "Let them." "Try," Jenna said grimly. "I'll fight anyone who tries to take you away, even if it means war, even if it means everything." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of desperate planning and stolen moments. Jenna reached out to old contacts in the diplomatic corps while Zephyr used his royal access codes to explore legal options. Both Earth Command and the Meridian Empire wanted them separated, one viewing Zephyr as a security risk, the other seeing Jenna as a corrupting influence. "There's a transport leaving for the Outer Rim tomorrow," Jenna told him as they lay in bed, holding each other close. "New Geneva Colony. It's beyond both governments' jurisdiction. You would give up everything? Your career, your world. I'd give up anything to keep you." Zephyr was quiet for a long moment, his skin pulsing with inner light as emotions played across his features. "There's something you should know about my people. When we mate, truly mate, it creates a biological bond. We become connected in ways that go beyond emotion." Jenna's heart skipped. "What kind of connection?" "I would know if you were hurt, even across star systems. You would feel my emotions as if they were your own. It's irreversible. Are you asking me if I want that?" "I'm asking if you're prepared for what loving me really means." Jenna rolled over to face him fully, her hands framing his luminous face. "Zephyr, I've been preparing for you my entire life. Without knowing it, every choice I made, every path I took, it was all leading me to you." He smiled through tears, his skin brightening to brilliant sapphire. "The bond happens during intimate connection, if we both choose it consciously. I choose it," she said without hesitation, "forever." Their lovemaking that night was different, slower, deeper, charged with the weight of permanent commitment. As their bodies joined, Zephyr's skin began to glow with brilliant light, and Jenna felt something shift inside her chest. The moment of bonding was indescribable, a rush of connection so complete that for an instant, she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. His love flooded through her like starlight, while her protective devotion wrapped around him like armor. "I can feel you," she whispered in wonder, her hand pressed to his chest. "Always," he promised. They were interrupted by alarms blaring throughout the station. Through their small viewport, they could see Meridian ships approaching, sleek vessels that looked like flying crystals against the starfield. "They're early," Zephyr breathed, his fear spiking through their new bond. Jenna was already reaching for clothes and her emergency kit. "The transport to New Geneva leaves in 6 hours. We need to reach Docking Bay 7. What followed was a heart-pounding chase through the station's corridors. Meridian soldiers in pursuit while Earth security tried to intercept them both. The biological bond between them proved invaluable. They could sense each other's locations, coordinate their movements without words. They made it to the transport with minutes to spare, but not before Jenna took a plasma burn to her shoulder, defending their escape route. The moment she was hurt, Zephyr cried out as if he'd been wounded himself, his skin flaring bright with shared pain. "I'm okay," she gasped as they collapsed into seats on the departing ship. "I know exactly how okay you are," he sighed. The colony transport Free Spirit was a converted cargo hauler, its passenger compartments cramped and utilitarian compared to the luxury of their previous accommodations. But as Jenna watched the hyperspace streams paint rainbow trails across the viewport, she had never felt more hopeful. Beside her, Zephyr's crystalline skin pulsed with a steady rhythm that matched her own heartbeat, a constant reminder of the bond they had forged. New Geneva is still 18 hours away, she said, checking the navigation display. "We should be safe once we reach colonial space." Zephyr's skin flickered with nervous energy, shifting from sapphire to pale silver through their bond. She could feel his anxiety mixing with her own determination. "Both our governments will not simply let us disappear. There will be consequences. Let them come," Jenna said fiercely, taking his hand. The contact sent warmth spiraling through both of them. Another benefit of their biological connection. "We've made our choice. Their fellow passengers were a mix of colonists, traders, and refugees fleeing various conflicts. Most gave the unusual couple curious glances, but minded their own business. In the cramped quarters, privacy was a luxury they couldn't afford, so they spoke in whispers and communicated more through their bond than words. 8 hours into the journey, everything changed. The ship's captain, a grizzled woman named Morrison, appeared on the passenger deck with grim news. "Folks, we've got company. 3 Meridian interceptors just dropped out of hyperspace behind us. They're demanding we prepare for boarding." Through the bond, Jenna felt Zephyr's terror spike. His skin paled to near transparency, and his hand trembled in hers. "They found us." "How?" Jenna's mind raced. "We used forged transit documents. The ship's registry was clean." Captain Morrison's expression was apologetic. "Someone with serious pull wanted you found. These aren't just Empire ships. There's a Terran cruiser with them. Both governments are working together on this one." The passenger compartment erupted. In nervous chatter, being caught between two military forces was every civilian's nightmare. Jenna felt the walls closing in around them, the future they'd planned crumbling before it had even begun. "There's an escape pod," Morrison said quietly, moving closer to them. "Bay 3, it's got enough supplies for a week, maybe more if you're careful." "Where would we go?" Jenna asked. "We're in deep space. There's an asteroid mining station about 6 hours from here. Tango Station, independent operation. They don't ask questions, and they don't cooperate with government authorities." Through their bond, Jenna felt Zephyr's sudden surge of hope mixed with desperate fear. 6 hours in an escape pod, with both militaries hunting them. It was insane. It was also their only chance. Do it, she decided. They had minutes to gather their few possessions before Morrison led them through maintenance corridors to the escape pod bay. The pods were designed for emergency evacuation, barely large enough for the people and equipped with basic life support. "Good luck," Morrison said, initiating the launch sequence. "And for what it's worth, I think what you're doing is brave as hell." The pod ejected into space with a stomach-lurching lurch, its tiny engines immediately engaging to carry them away from the transport's trajectory. Through the small viewport, Jenna could see the sleek forms of the interceptors closing on the Free Spirit, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight into prismatic displays. "They'll search the ship," Zephyr said, his voice tight with strain. "When they don't find us, they'll scan for pod signatures. Then we'd better make sure they don't find one." Jenna activated the pod's emergency protocols, powering down all non-essential systems until they were running on minimal life support. The pod went dark except for the faint glow of Zephyr's skin, drifting like a piece of space debris among the asteroids. The next 6 hours were the longest of their lives. Crammed together in the tiny space, they could only whisper and hold each other as military ships swept the area with sensor beams. Twice, search patterns came close enough that they could see the hunters through their viewport, sleek predators stalking through the void. Through their bond, they shared strength and comfort, each drawing on the other's courage when their own faltered. Jenna discovered she could actually feel Zephyr's thoughts now, not specific words, but emotions and impressions that painted his mental landscape in shades of crystalline light. Love came through clearly, along with gratitude and determination. But underneath was a current of guilt that made her heart ache. "This isn't your fault," she whispered, pressing her forehead against his. "I've destroyed your life," he replied, his skin dim with shame. "Your career, your world, your future, all gone because of me." "No," she said firmly, cupping his face in her hands. "You didn't destroy anything. You gave me everything. Before you, I was just going through the motions, following protocols, serving abstract ideals. You made me realize what actually matters. What matters, this us, love. The choice to create something beautiful in a universe that seems determined to tear it apart." His skin brightened at her words, pulsing with renewed hope. Through their bond, she felt his love wash over her like warm sunlight, banishing the shadows of doubt and fear. Tango Station appeared as a cluster of lights against the darkness, a ramshackle collection of habitat modules and mining equipment strapped to a slowly rotating asteroid. It looked like organized chaos, which was exactly what they needed. The station's docking controller had the gravelly voice of someone who'd spent decades breathing recycled air. Unknown pod, this is Tango Control. State your business. Requesting asylum. Jenna transmitted back. We can pay standard rates. Credits or trade goods. Credits. Docket Bay 7. Welcome to Tango Station, where nobody cares who you used to be. The docking bay was a converted mining shaft, barely large enough for their tiny pod. The artificial gravity was lighter than Earth standard, making Zephyr's movements seem even more graceful. As they gathered their belongings, Station Administrator Walsh was a compact woman with cybernetic implants replacing her left eye and arm. Casualties of mining accidents, she explained matter-of-factly. She led them through corridors carved from living rock, past workshops and bars where humans and aliens worked side by side. We've got a small residential section, Walsh said, stopping at a door marked Heb 47. Basic amenities, privacy guaranteed. The only rule here is don't bring your problems to other people's doors. The habitat was Spartan, but clean. A main room with basic furniture, a tiny kitchen, and a sleeping alcove. Most importantly, it had a privacy lock and no monitoring systems. How long can we stay? Jenna asked. As long as you want, assuming you pay your bills and don't cause trouble. We've had folks here for decades. Walsh's cybernetic eye word as it focused on Zephyr. Can't say we've had Meridian royalty before, but we've hosted stranger things. After Walsh left, they finally allowed themselves to believe they might actually be safe. Zephyr collapsed into a chair, his skin cycling through colors as emotions played across his features. We did it, he said wonderingly. We actually escaped. For now. Jenna sat beside him, taking his hand. But they'll keep looking, and eventually, they might find us. Then we make the most of the time we have. Through their bond, she felt his sudden shift in mood, fear giving way to something deeper, more primal. When he looked at her, his galaxy eyes held an intensity that made her breath catch. There's something I need to tell you about the bonding process, he said, his voice low and musical. What we experienced on the station was only the first stage. First stage, his skin flushed deeper blue, and she could feel his nervous excitement through their connection. To complete the bond, to make it truly permanent, we need to undergo the ritual of crystal fusion, which involves sharing life essence at the deepest level. It would make our bond unbreakable, even by death. But it's irreversible, Jenna. Once completed, we would be linked forever, our souls intertwined across space and time. The weight of his words settled over her. Through their bond, she could feel his longing warring with his desire to give her the choice. What happens if we don't complete it? The bond we have now will fade over time. Years, perhaps decades, but eventually we would lose this connection. Jenna thought of the warmth that flowed between them, the way she could feel his emotions as clearly as her own, the comfort of knowing exactly where he was and how he felt at any moment. The idea of losing that connection was unbearable. How do we do it? Zephyr's skin brightened to brilliant sapphire, his relief and joy flooding. Through their bond, it requires perfect unity of purpose and complete vulnerability. We would need to share our deepest fears, our greatest hopes, our most essential selves. I'm ready. They spent the next hours preparing, sharing stories of their childhoods, their dreams, their darkest moments. Jenna told him about the pressure of being the youngest ambassador, the weight of expectations that had driven her to perfectionism. Zephyr spoke of the loneliness of royal life, the way he'd been trained to suppress his own desires for the good of the empire. As night fell over the station, artificial cycles maintained for human comfort, they came together with reverent purpose. Their lovemaking was different this time, slower and more intense, each touch carrying the weight of commitment beyond mortality. At the moment of deepest connection, Zephyr's skin erupted. 5 years had passed since their escape to Tango Station. Though it felt like both a lifetime and an instant to Jenna, the ramshackle mining outpost had become home in ways she never could have imagined. Its rough corridors and improvised chambers, more welcoming than any diplomatic residence she'd ever known. Standing in the observation lounge, she watched their daughter play among the hydroponic gardens they'd helped establish in the station's converted cargo bay. Lyrian was 4 years old now, A perfect blend of both her parents, humanoid in form, but with skin that held the faint luminescence of her father's people, shifting between warm gold and pale silver depending on her mood. "Mama, look," Lyrian called out, her voice carrying the musical quality of Meridian's speech. In her small hands, she held a flowering vine that responded to her touch, its blossoms opening and glowing with soft bioluminescence. "The plants like me, through their bond." Jenna felt Zephyr's approach before she heard his footsteps. The connection between them had only grown stronger over the years, becoming as natural as breathing. She could sense his contentment as he wrapped his arms around her from behind, his crystalline skin warm against her back. "She's remarkable," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her neck. "The first human Meridian hybrid in recorded history. And she's already showing abilities neither of our species possess alone." Jenna leaned back against him, marveling at how perfectly they still fit together. The xenobiologists would go crazy if they could study her development patterns, which is exactly why we'll never let them. Zephyr said firmly. His protective instincts regarding their daughter were fierce, sharpened by 5 years of living as fugitives. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by the station's communication system crackling to life. "Would Jenna Thorne and Prince Zephyr please report to Administrator Walsh's office immediately?" They exchanged worried glances. In 5 years on Tango Station, they'd never been summoned to the administrator's office. Through their bond, Jenna felt Zephyr's spike of anxiety mixing with her own. "Senna," Jenna called to one of the other colonists, elderly Voltaxian engineer who'd become like a grandmother to Lyrian. "Could you watch her for a moment?" The blue-skinned woman waved them away with forearms. Go. The little star child is always safe with me." Walsh's office was carved from the asteroid's native rock, its walls lined with mining equipment and star charts. But today, it also contained 3 holographic projectors, displaying the images of people Jenna had hoped never to see again. Admiral Torres looked older, her steel-gray hair now completely white. Beside her stood Ambassador Nexus, the Meridian's crystalline form refracting light in familiar patterns. Between them was a third figure Jenna didn't recognize, a human woman in civilian clothes with kind eyes and prematurely gray hair. "Ambassador Thorne," Torres began, her voice carrying across space with military precision. "Prince Zephyr, thank you for agreeing to speak with us." "We didn't exactly have a choice," Jenna replied coolly. "What do you want?" The unknown woman stepped forward. "My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez, Director of the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Institute. We've been following your situation with great interest." Through their bond, Jenna felt Zephyr's suspicion flare. "Following us how?" "Not tracking your location," Vasquez assured them quickly. "We learned long ago that you'd found sanctuary beyond our jurisdictions. Rather, we've been studying the implications of your union." Ambassador Nexus spoke next, her harmonic voice filling the office. "The Empire has experienced difficulties since your departure, Prince Zephyr. The revelation that humans do not consume their mates has caused significant cultural upheaval." "Good," Zephyr said flatly. "Perhaps some of my people will finally question other barbaric traditions." Indeed, many have. There have been 3 major revolts in the outer systems, all demanding the right to choose their own mates. The Crystal Council is struggling to maintain order. Admiral Torres cleared her throat. "Similarly, Earth Command has faced questions about our assumptions regarding alien cultures. The xenophobia that drove our initial conflicts has been challenged by the evidence of your successful bonding." Jenna felt a chill of premonition. "What exactly are you asking of us?" Dr. Vasquez leaned forward, her expression earnest. "Both governments, along with 12 other major powers, have agreed to establish a new diplomatic initiative, the Harmony Accords. We're creating a neutral zone where interspecies relationships can develop naturally, without political interference, and you want us to be your poster children," Jenna said bitterly. "We want you to be our teachers," Vasquez corrected. "Your daughter represents something unprecedented, proof that love can literally bridge the gap between species. The genetic compatibility studies alone have revolutionized our understanding of evolution." Through their bond, Jenna felt Zephyr's complex mix of emotions, Hope warring with protective fear, curiosity battling suspicion. They'd built a good life on Tango Station, but it was still a life in hiding. What would this involve, Zephyr asked carefully. Ambassador Nexus answered, a colony world, Heaven's Rest, has been established in neutral space. Couples from different species are invited to settle there, to build a society based on choice rather than political necessity. You would serve as founding governors, helping to establish the principles and laws, and our daughter, Jenna's maternal instincts sharpened. What guarantee do we have that she won't become a laboratory specimen? Dr. Vasquez's expression softened. Complete protection under the Harmony Accords. No government or institution may study, interview, or even approach her without your explicit consent. Her welfare and privacy are absolutely guaranteed. The offer hung in the air like a bridge across an impossible chasm. Through their bond, Jenna felt Zephyr weighing the same considerations. That filled her own mind. They could continue hiding on Tango Station, safe but limited, or they could step back into the larger galaxy and try to build something better. We need time to consider, Jenna said finally. Of course, Torres nodded. But I should mention, there are already 47 couples waiting to join the colony. Your union has inspired more than you know. After the holograms faded, Jenna and Zephyr sat in silence, processing the magnitude of the offer. Through their bond, emotions flowed back and forth, excitement, fear, hope, protectiveness all swirling together. What do you think? Jenna asked finally. Zephyr's skin pulsed with thoughtful patterns of blue and silver. I think about Lyrian. What kind of future do we want for her? Here, she's safe but isolated. On Heaven's Rest, she could be part of something larger. She could also be scrutinized, studied, potentially exploited. True. But we would be there to protect her. And perhaps, his skin brightened with sudden hope. Perhaps she could have friends like herself, other hybrid children, others who don't fit neatly into existing categories. Through their bond, Jenna felt his deepest longing, the desire to belong somewhere, to be part of a community that celebrated rather than merely tolerated their differences. That evening, they held a family meeting in their small habitat. Lyrian sat between them on their makeshift couch, her skin glowing with curiosity as they explained the offer in terms she could understand. A whole world where everyone is different. She asked, her galaxy eyes, so like her father's, wide with wonder, where everyone is different. And that's exactly what makes it special, Jenna confirmed. Would there be other children like me? Zephyr smiled, his love for their daughter flowing through the bond like warm honey. Probably not exactly like you, Star Child, but others who don't quite fit anywhere else either. I want to go, Lyrian declared with the absolute certainty only children possessed. I want to meet the other different children. The decision, when it came, felt inevitable. They sent their acceptance to Dr. Vasquez the next morning, along with detailed requirements for Lyrian's protection and their own autonomy as colony leaders. 3 months later, they stood on the observation deck of the transport New Beginning, watching Heaven's Rest grow larger in the viewport. The planet was beautiful, a world of vast oceans and floating continents, with auroras that painted the sky in constantly shifting colors. Second thoughts? Zephyr asked, his hand finding hers as Lyrian pressed her face against the transperistal in excitement. Through their bond, Jenna felt his own mixture of anticipation and nervousness. No, she said, surprising herself with her certainty. Whatever happens, we'll face it together, and maybe we'll build something wonderful. The colony site was still under construction, but already she could see the beginnings of something remarkable. Prefabricated structures designed by a dozen different species dotted the landscape, while gardens planted with flora from multiple worlds created a riot of alien colors. As they disembarked, they were greeted by other colonists, a Voltaxian human couple with twin daughters, a Meridian Andronian pair who communicated through harmonic frequencies, a triple bonded group from 3 different species who'd found love in a refugee camp. Welcome home, said Marcus Chen, a human who'd bonded with a butterfly-winged seraphim named Melody. We've been waiting for you. Looking around at the diverse faces, feeling the genuine warmth of welcome, Jenna realized they had indeed come home, not to a place, but to a calm,